Being in the left is like being in a boat on an ocean current. So long as you're going along with the current, it will sweep you along with it and it will take good care of you. But the minute you try to deviate just 1 millimetre from the stream, it will do its best to exhaust you and drown you. I'm going to show you this process in action with J.K. Rowling, or at least an attempt. I'm Graniopteryx. All right, Graham Linehan is one of the funniest writers I have ever come across. But that didn't stop him from being part of the left progressives and indulging in the sort of pack behaviour which has become all too horribly common in that crowd. And he continued displaying that pack behaviour right up until the point that he started to consider that perhaps men dressed in frocks and made up with a little bit of lipstick, or rather with probably over much of lipstick, that these people are not actually women. And he made the big mistake of saying so. And that's when the left turned on him like the pack of wolves of which he had so recently been a member. And they accused him of all sorts of horrors, transphobia being the worst sin that any human being could commit, drove him out of his job. He became unemployable. His marriage broke down. I think he ended up in a grimy bedsit at one point and completely broke. I think he's recovered a little bit now, but there was a time when it looked very much like, well, still does look like, the left were trying to drive him into suicide, which is basically, I think, what they were trying to do now to Linehan and what they are still trying to do to J.K. Rowling. The fact is that J.K. Rowling has far too many financial resources to be too badly affected by them. But obviously, being a woman, I'm sure she had far more of the threats of a sexual nature than Linehan got, because when women leave the agreed line of whatever the civilization has agreed is the line, they are always more heavily punished. You know, let's just go back to the fact that men couldn't commit adultery in biblical times, but if a woman was found guilty of adultery, she'd be stoned to death, wouldn't she? There's that sort of thing. There's always some leeway for men. Well, basically because the men were making the laws. And it's interesting that Rowling was also on the left, which just shows you can be really intelligent and creative and still make terrible mistakes. Because it's quite obvious that the sort of people the left are. They are bigoted, spiteful, vituperative and narrow-minded, while at the same time referring to themselves as progressives. So here we have a journal which calls itself progressive. This is the New Statesman, and it's a great example of the way the left turned on Rowling suddenly, and all the things that she was famous for and lauded for have got a negative spin in this article written by Nick Hilton, as I said, writing for the New Statesman, which is a famously progressive journal. Okay, so here we have, he's talking, he labels her, he labels her thus: J.K. Rowling, Britain's gloriously nasty novelist. Well, that's a nice way to start it. And look at this cartoon of her. You know, I wouldn't call that particularly flattering, would you? Her electric Robert Galbraith novels portray a Britain populated by paedophiles, domestic abusers, rapists and terrorists. I'm interrupting to remind you to click like and to subscribe and share. Also, I'm constantly being told that YouTube removes subscriptions, so please click the notification bell and check that you really are subscribed. All the links to my other channels are in the description, including links to donation sites I'm always grateful, of course, for donations, but simply clicking like is the best thing you can do for this video and my channel generally. Thank you. Now, what's interesting about this cartoon, which must have been made at least with the cooperation of Nick Hilton, I don't know who did illustration by Stephen Collins, but they were obviously collaborating on this, because right at the end of the Hilton article, it says, when she assumed the Galbraith pseudonym a decade ago, Rowling was putting on a mask. The mask of anonymity, the mask of detachment, the mask of adulthood. No, this is typical lefty mind reading. What I would guess that Rowling was doing was, by using another name, she was distancing herself from the Harry Potter books, which a lot of writers do. She was putting on a mask, but on another level, she was taking off a mask and showing herself in full nasty glory for the first time. So this is the full nasty glory that Hilton says Rowling is showing. And what is he saying? First of all, he says, Rowling has transitioned from national treasure to liberal pariah, alienating her largely left-wing fan base with gender-critical politics. No, she hasn't. She may have alienated people like Hilton, but then, of course, people like Hilton only talk among themselves. And so, talking among themselves, they think nobody likes Rowling anymore because they don't. Her victims, then he gives, her victims are doused in acid, asphyxiated, thrown from balconies, and the final indignity, preyed upon by voyeuristic tabloid journalists. Well, you see, that happens in all detective novels. But he's turned it into some sort of a minus for her. And, oh, hang on, Harry Potter series, which themselves feature child abuse, murder and torture. I don't know that Hilton wrote anything about how terrible the Harry Potter novels were, while Rowling was writing them and firmly on the left. I don't think Hilton criticised her for what happened in the Harry Potter novels. It's amazing how suddenly he's become very moral about that sort of stuff. And he even criticises Rowling's criticism of the petit bourgeois. Rowling's career as a purveyor of vicious social derision began on the first page of the first Harry Potter book. And this is where she describes the Dursleys in very uncomplimentary terms. But what's wrong with that? At least somebody on the right could have said, look, you've made the Dursleys, the middle classes, you've been rather nasty about them, haven't you? But not people on the left. They rub their hands with glee at that sort of thing. But now suddenly Hilton is a champion of the bourgeoisie. And then, let's see. Oh, he talks about the length of her novels. The first one, Cuckoo's Calling, was only 464 pages, but now the later ones are about 1,000 pages, and obviously that's not a good thing. And it's not a good thing, I suspect, mostly because when somebody on the left who leaves the left starts to talk, even one word out of their mouths is one word too many. The malice of Rowling's novels springs not just from its ugly villains, but from the narrative cruelty directed at so many of her less abhorrent but still sinister characters. So she's got a nasty mind. I wonder if Hilton's read any Agatha Christie novels recently. So Rowling's propensity for spite is exhilarating, particularly as being celebrated for sheer nastiness is a privilege so often reserved for male authors. Oh, yeah, and we can't have female authors getting the privileges reserved for male authors. But This is a good example of the misogynistic aspect of the left when they're crossed. It's not just that that people like Nick Hilton resent the fact that she is no longer subscribing to the basket of beliefs, but she's a woman as well, and a woman dumping the basket of beliefs. Let's face it, women are there to carry baskets, aren't they? They are the basket carriers of the world. And when they stop carrying that basket, they have to be hated. The spite and misogyny of the left is just gobsmacking. Okay, till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.